I'm Lori, and today I'm going to demonstrate an Ohio pre-service, pre-trip inspection on a conventional style bus. As I've approached the bus, I can see that it is not leaning from one side to the other, which could be a flat tire or broken spring. I also see no hazards around the bus, such as people, cars, or other objects. There's nothing under the bus either, and I don't see any fresh puddles of fuel, oil, or coolant, which could be a leak. The reflective tape is not ripped, faded, or torn. The 3 amber clearance lights, 2 amber and 2 red student warning lights, 2 amber turn signal 4-ways, 2 clear headlights, and the inside reflectors, they are all screwed to the bus, not broken or missing. This hood latch is secured to the hood with screws. It is not ripped or loose. This hood latch is the same, not ripped or loose, secured with screws. Put the hood up. Okay. The cables for the hood are not broken or missing. The hood has no cracks or damage. The hinges are screwed, bolted to the frame. They are not bent or twisted. I see no visible moisture on the top of the engine, which could be a leak. None of the hoses are bulging, leaking, or kinked, including the air hoses, which are also not bulging, leaking, or kinked. Follow them down to the air compressor and power steering. Those 2 parts are bolted to the engine and gear driven. The air compressor is not leaking air or oil. The power steering pump is not leaking power steering fluid. The oil and transmission dipsticks should read between add and full. I check the oil daily on a cold engine. The transmission fluid weekly on a warm running engine. The power steering fluid should be between add and full. The cap is tight and I see no leaks. The steering shaft has no more than 2-inch play. The gearbox is bolted to the frame, not cracked or leaking. The pitman arm, drag link, upper and lower steering arm, and the tie rod, they are all secure with castle nuts and cotter pins. None of those parts are broken or bent. The front and rear suspension mounts are bolted to the frame, not cracked or loose. The leaf springs are not loose, shifted, or missing. They are secure with 2 U-bolts and 4 nuts. The U-bolts are not loose or cracked. The top and bottom, or upper and lower shock mounts are secure with bolts. The shock is not bent or leaking. The brake hose is not The brake hose is not bulging, leaking, cut, or kinked. The ABS wire is not bare, broken, or frayed. The brake chamber is not cracked, dented, or leaking air. The slack adjuster and push rod are secure with a lock nut and pin. With the brake set, they should be at about a 90-degree angle. With the brake release, you should be able to pull the push rod no more than 1 inch. I'm going to look through the sight hole on the backing plate to make sure there's no grease or oil inside the drum and the lining is not worn dangerously thin. Come out here to the inner and outer sidewalls of the tire. They are free of abrasions, bulges, and cuts. The tread depth is no less than 4/32. It's wearing evenly and there is not a recap on the front. The valve stem is centered on the rim. Metal cap is tight. I hear no air leaks. I would use a pressure gauge to check the pressure, but I don't have one, so I just visually inspect for a lower flat tire. The rim is free of cracks and welds, no illegal welds. The lugs, nuts, and bolts are all present and tight. No rust trails to indicate looseness. The hub oil seal cap is not leaking. There's not a puddle on the rim or a splash pattern on the tire or wheel. The mud flap is not ripped or torn. It is bolted to the bus. Radiator cap is tight. Level is between low and full. I see no leaks. Back in here is the turbo housing. It is not cracked or leaking. If you want to find that, you just follow the metal tube back to the housing. The alternator and power steering pump, water pump, are bolted to the engine and belt driven. The alternator's wires are not bare, broken, or frayed. The water pump is not leaking water. The serpentine belt is not loose, frayed, or cut, has no more than 1/2 to 3/4 inch of play. The cap for the washer fluid is tight. I see no leaks. The container is bolted to the frame. It's got an adequate level. The front and rear suspension mounts are not cracked or loose. They're bolted to the frame. The leaf springs are not cracked, shifted, or missing. They are secure with 2 U-bolts and 4 nuts. U-bolts are not loose or cracked. The shock absorber, the upper and lower mounts, are secure with bolts. The shock is not bent, leaking, or twisted. The brake hose is not bulging, leaking, cut, or kinked. The ABS wire is secure to the brake hose. It is not bare, broken, or frayed. And in case I missed that on the other side, I would say the same thing. The brake chamber is not cracked, dented, or leaking. The slack adjuster and push rod are secure with lock nut and pin. With the brake set, they should be at a slight 90-degree angle. With the brake release, I should be able to pull the push rod no more than 1 inch. I checked through the backing plate on this side as well to make sure that there is no grease or oil laying in the drum, and that the brake lining is is not worn dangerously thin or no less than 1/4 inch. The inner and outer sidewalls are free of abrasions, bulges, and cuts. The tread depth is wearing evenly, no less than 4/32, and again, not a recap. The brake drum is not cracked. I missed that on the other side. The rim has no cracks or illegal welds. The valve stem is centered on the rim. Metal cap is tight. I hear no leaks. I would use a tire gauge to check the pressure, but I don't have one, so I just visually inspect for a lower flat tire. All of the lugs, nuts, and bolts are present and tight. I see no rust trails that could mean looseness. The hub oil seal cap is not leaking. There's no puddle on the rim, splash pattern on the wheel. This mud flap is also bolted to the bus, not ripped or torn. Secure the hood with the latch. Mirror brackets. 1, 2, 3, 4. The mirror brackets are all bolted to the bus, not broken or missing, and none of the mirrors are broken or missing. This hood latch also secures the hood. Battery box. The batteries are secure in their tray with a bracket. I see no moisture or corrosion that could mean a leak. The cables are tight. The tray is locked. Underneath there is my air tank. It is secure in its brackets to the frame. It is not cracked or leaking, and its air lines are not bulging, leaking, cut, or kinked. No. Stop sign is secure in its bracket. Bracket is secured to the bus. The 4 red lenses are not cracked or missing. They are secured to the sign with screws. The air bladder or bag is not cracked. The retraction cable is not broken or missing, and the wires are not bare, broken, or frayed. My amber clearance in the front and center, and the red rear clearance lights. My amber turn signal 4 ways here and up top on the hood. They are all screwed to the bus, not broken or missing. None of my windows are broken or missing. My reflector is not broken or missing. Hit pause. Okay, here we are under the bus. The frame, cross members, that piece up there, and floor are not bent or twisted. I see no excessive rust that could be a hole. The drive shaft is not bent or twisted. It is secure with carrier bearings to the frame. Carrier bearings are bolted. Safety hangers are in place. The exhaust goes from the engine to the tailpipe. It is not cracked. I see no soot or rust that could be a hole. The joints are tight, and it is secure with brackets to the frame. Back here we have the brakes and suspension. The suspension mount is bolted to the frame, not cracked or loose. The leaf springs are not cracked, shifted, or missing. They are secure with 2 U-bolts and 4 nuts. The U-bolts are not cracked or loose. The shock absorber is back here. Its upper and lower mounts are secure. The shock is not bent, twisted, or leaking. You may be able to see that better from the back. I got it at this angle. The brake chambers, you will notice there are 2. Neither chamber is cracked or leaking. The air hose is not leaking, bulged, cut, or kinked. The ABS wire is secured to that brake hose. It is not bare, broken, or frayed. Between the dual tires, I see no debris, and there is no gap between the rims.